Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wise Guys podcast, episode number 37. I am Brandon Capizzello, and today my co-host, John Tortorelli. We're going to bring you a couple topics today. We're going to be previewing week 6, but before that, we're going to jump into John's a little hot take maybe about Mike Tomlin possibly being on the hot seat. Questions John has as a Steelers fan. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about the New York Giants taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Then we're going to jump into the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buffalo Bills. How is that not a primetime game? Who knows? Then we're going to get into the Cowboys versus the Philadelphia Eagles, a big division game. Then we're going to pick the whole rest of the slate of week 6 for you guys. And then we're going to finish the episode off with the NBA Southeast rankings. John, how are we doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. I woke up an hour late, so unfortunately we are without J-Ray for those reasons. But I'm pretty excited, and most of all, this first topic, it's getting me going a little bit.
All right. Well, speaking of our first topic, John, the floor is yours, my friend. I sent you a video last night, and I thought you were going to react like me and like another Steelers friend who I saw sent the video to of this is blasphemy. This is a terrible take. But to my surprise, you had different thoughts. You agreed with this clip. Now, this clip that I'm referencing to was of 2 Steelers fans on TikTok talking about how Mike Tomlin, I guess, needs to take a little bit more accountability, a little bit more of responsibility, and how he really doesn't do anything on the sideline. I think they really called him a cheerleader. So John, the floor is yours, Pittsburgh Steeler fan. Tell me what's going on through your mind.
So that clip B-Cap is speaking of is from the Frank Michael Smith podcast, and it's kind of crazy. The 2 words you just said right there, responsibility and accountability, were 2 of my exact thoughts. You know, I don't listen to Skip Bayless, but a couple of years ago in 2017, he had James Harrison on his show with Shannon Sharp. And they asked him, whenever James Harrison speaks, by the way, I always listen, is Mike Tomlin a great head coach? And Harrison said no. I think he's a good head coach because great head coaches, they take a team and they level them up. They take good players and they make them great. Mike Tomlin is a great media personality. He says all the right things. But when you're talking of elite head coaches, Tomlin has never belonged in that company. And more so, when you look at the Steelers since he was hired in 2008, he's been carried by these rosters. And each and every single year, he has been the one holding these teams back. First off, talking about elite head coaches in the NFL, Bill Belichick, Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McDermott, Mike Vrabel, John Harbaugh even, Pete Carroll now. All of those guys have proven as much as Tomlin, I would say, and they're already better head coaches. Then you have the new tier of guys who are already elevating a team while very early in their head coaching careers. Kevin Stefanski, Brian Dable, Mike McDaniel, Nick Sirianni, Doug Peterson's won a Super Bowl himself, Frank Reich's in the hot seat. I look at all these coaches in the NFL, and I see innovation. I see creativity. And more so the issue with the Steelers is, Brandon, Mike Tomlin's a CEO type. He's not going to run the offense. But since firing Todd Haley in 2017, he has hired the 2 worst offensive coordinators in football. The play calling has been abysmal. So if you're going to do that, and then defensively, since letting go of Dick LeBeau, the defensive coordinators and Keith Butler and Terrell Austin are just defensive back and linebackers coach being appointed. There's no process to hiring the best assistants and the best staff for the job. It's just Tomlin promoting the next guy up. And each and every single time in recent years, these next guys have been issues with the Steelers. The play calling is terrible. There's very little structure. There's very little nuance. And that's the Steelers' issue right now. The Steelers' offense has all this talent. If you give Sean McVay, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, Najee Harris, he's taking that team and winning 12, 13 games. It's just a matter of fact. Meanwhile, the Steelers' offense and Matt Canada has been terrible, and it's not like it's been any different in the last 4 or 5 years. And I think right now Mike Tomlin should be on the hot seat because for some reason the Steelers are not going to put him on it, and there's no pressure on him, which is ironic. It really is, because when you look at this team and all the talent on it, he says, the next man up, the standard is the standard. But at the end of the day, when one star goes down in TJ Watt, he can't win a game. And most importantly, I think Mike Tomlin was just carried by Ben Roethlisberger. There's just no responsibility here. Without Big Ben, he has not won at the highest levels. And even with Big Ben, since 2012, the Steelers have won 3 playoff games. You know, we talk all the time about Tomlin's winning percentage, but in Pittsburgh, we're trying to win Super Bowls. That's how it's always been. And when you look at all of these rosters he's had through the years, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Marquise Pouncey, David Castro, defensively there's been players, Shazier, and Joe Hayden. At the end of the day, he's a more of a defensive-oriented CEO type of head coach. And every single time in the playoffs, we have had embarrassments. And the accountability is never pointed to Mike Tomlin. We berate Mike McCarthy, the guy who won a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, for him limiting Green Bay. But what's the difference between Mike McCarthy and Mike Tomlin? That one's a little bit more flashy, a little bit more, I guess the word would be cool. I really feel like when I look at those two guys, there is not much of a difference. Outside one's more well-respected. So right now, I mean, Mike Tomlin, he's the one of, if not the biggest problem in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay. Couple of things. I fundamentally and completely disagree with Mike Tomlin not being elite and not being great. To me, I went over it last night before I went to sleep, and I thought about the top head coaches in the league. And like I do with my quarterbacks, I have the same thing with the head coaches. So if you've won a Super Bowl, you are proven. Sorry, Kyle Shanahan, you are not a top 6 head coach because you do not have that ring to back it up. And you have been a part of not one, but 2 teams as a coach. One as a head coach, one as an OC, 2 of them blowing leads. Okay? He's been a part of them. For me, it goes Bill Belichick. Number 2, I put Andy Reid. Number 3, I put Sean McVay. Number 4 is Mike Tomlin. Number 5, John Harbaugh. And number 6, Pete Carroll. And then Kyle Shanahan after that. So, I thought about it, and I said to myself, right? So if you want Tomlin out, who's out there that's better? Who are you going to get that's better? I don't think that there's anybody right now that you can bring in currently that's going to make the Pittsburgh Steelers a difference maker. Unless you're going to get Jim Harbaugh, but he just signed a massive extension with Michigan. He's the only probably Super Bowl caliber head coach out there for the NFL. I point to Mike Tomlin has had to deal with one of the biggest headaches the NFL has ever seen in Antonio Brown. That guy was on his team. And for everybody who wanted to call Terrell Owens a team obliterator, AB is much worse than Terrell Owens. Now, I bring to you the positives of Mike Tomlin because I feel like this is recency bias. He's been number 1 in the AFC North 7 out of the 15 times. He's been coaching the Steelers for 15 years. So 7 times he's been number 1 in the AFC North. Number 2, he's been 6 times. Third twice, never has finished last place. That might change this year, but we can get into that a little bit more. In the regular season, his career record is 155, 88, and 2. Playoffs is 8 and 9. I'll give you that. He's had 9 double-digit wins out of 15 years, 2 Super Bowls appearances, 1 win, 3 AFC Championship appearances, 15 seasons, and 0 losing seasons. Now, I will admit, if you want to bring up the Mike Tomlin as a GM is not very good, I can give you that because we see as a New England Patriots fan, Bill Belichick as a head coach is the greatest of all time and the best in the league. But as a GM, he's not very good. He hits, but he misses a lot more than he hits. So I'll give you that through the draft. They've drafted players with a lot of potential and a lot of talent. They have. Ryan Shazier, that was an unfortunate event. Devin Bush had a lot of talent, a lot of promise coming in. I think he had a great rookie season, if I'm not mistaken, but then he hasn't reached that level since. Minkah Fitzpatrick, to me, has been a very big disappointment for these Pittsburgh Steelers. He is supposed to be considered one of the best safeties in the league, if not the best free safety in the league. And I know I shouldn't compare him to Troy Polamalu because that's blasphemy, but when you put on a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform, you're an all-pro safety. I'm going to compare you to the person who was just there, and that's Troy Polamalu. We're going to do it for everybody else. Big Ben, when Tom Brady left New England, Peyton Manning, Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, named the Hall of Fame players. You get compared to your people of the past. Minkah Fitzpatrick is no Troy Polamalu. That's just a fact. He's not. And maybe I will give you the fact that we are in a league that is completely softened and the defense is basically handicapped. They play usually with one hand behind their back. I'll give you that. Maybe if he played 10, 15 years ago, Minkah Fitzpatrick would be a lot better because he could get away with a lot more, because I shouldn't even say get away with. He could actually play defense. You know what I mean? Like defensive players nowadays, they're not even really allowed to play defense. TJ Watt, how could you he's been a phenomenal pickup for the Steelers in the draft, but how can you blame Tomlin for TJ Watt's injuries? Now you can blame Tomlin for not being able to fill a defense around TJ Watt to perform at a better level when he's out. I can give you that. But you say he hasn't bring in good coordinators and whatnot. Offensively, I agree, but they did bring in Brian Flores, if I'm not mistaken. I think we both think very highly of Brian Flores. He's not a DC, but he's a defensive linebacker coach, if I'm not mistaken. Assistant. He's in the locker room. He should be able to, I think he should probably be promoted, if I don't know if you agree with that, to DC at least. But I don't think you can blame it all on Mike Tomlin. I mean, he's got last year was Big Ben's last year, right? Or am I losing track? Okay, yeah. So, and we all know that Big Ben throughout his last couple of years, even though I thought more highly of him than a lot more people, and he was putting up really good numbers, he was not the same quarterback he was 10 years ago. He really wasn't. He couldn't move the same. So he was a stationary target. He could still throw the ball well, but he was a stationary target. And what made Ben special was what? His ability to extend plays, improv. So he got, this is a guy, Mike Tomlin, who won games with freaking Mason Rudolph, John. He's got Mitchell Trubisky now.
He had 6 Pro Bowlers in that defense.
Okay, I understand that, but okay, well, but you can't have it both. Both can be true. You know what I mean? Like he can have a great defense, but still have. Are we going to give Bill Belichick the credit this year? He has a third string rookie quarterback, but that defense is phenomenal, right? Or are we just going to take that away from Bill?
There's a difference there. Bill developed that talent. When you look at that Steelers defense, Bud Dupree and TJ Watt, it's the best edge rush duo in the NFL. Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt in the middle, Steven Nelson, Joe Hayden, and Minkah. That was like 6 Pro Bowlers that carried that team. And the thing was, the Steelers were not elevated by Tomlin. They weren't.
Well, who went out and got them, though?
Kevin Colbert. Tomlin's not the true GM. He just has a say in the way the team's managed.
I think he's got a lot more say.
Now that Colbert retired, he does, but 3 years ago, no, he didn't.
Listen, it's still that I'm not going to take away the fact that he won games with Mason Rudolph as a quarterback just because his defense was really good. Okay, and elite, I'll give it. But listen, he's got a rookie quarterback this year. We all knew this year was going to be a down year. You and the other Pittsburgh Steelers fans are probably the only people that thought that they had a chance to make the playoff, which I thought was ridiculous and a little delusional. There was no shot. You have one of the hardest divisions in football, and you're going in there with Mitchell Trubisky as your freaking quarterback. Kenny Pickett is going to take a little time, it looks like. Maybe next year will be a much better year for him. He's shown promise. Let's see what – listen, the Rooney family is not going to fire Mike Tomlin. We agree on that. Like, he's not going anywhere. He just signed an extension last year, a 3-year deal. He signed through 2024. If anything, they will let his contract run out and he will be able to walk away on his own, but they're not going to fire him. Now, I give you this, John, right? If that's the case, 2025 comes around. Mike, they do not resign him. He walks away. I'll tell you two things. I'm going to make a statement, and then I'm going to give you a question. I thought about this last night as well. I could name probably 15 to 20 teams if Mike Tomlin walked away today from the Steelers that would line up to sign him as a head coach. Today. Then I hand you this. If he walks away in 2024, 2025 comes around, who is out there that you're going to get that's better? Who? Name me this person.
You don't let him go until or if you have that guy available. But when you look at these new head coaches, Brian Daboll, he can motivate his team the very same way, but his play calling is dynamic. And here's the thing. First off, you said I'm overreacting. Number one, Minkah this year has been absolutely phenomenal. 3 picks, pick 6. The dude has been the best player in the team. He's been very good. The issue, it's weird to me. The Steelers have all this star talent. In the draft, they've missed on a lot of picks. Devin Bush, Terrell Emmons was fine. Najee Harris made no freaking sense. Artie Burns in 2016. But in spite of those things, they've built a very good defense. Tomlin has say in that defense, and it underperforms. It can't be TJ Watt goes down and the entire stack of cards falls on its head. Here's the thing. When it comes to playoff wins, the Giants have more since 2011. You don't hold Mike Tomlin accountable. You don't hold him responsible. But in the playoffs, he had the quarterback. That's the most important thing. He had a Hall of Famer, and he won 3 games. 3 games the last 11 years. How is that? He lost to the Jaguars, embarrassment at home in the playoffs. The Browns, embarrassment. You're going to give all the credit to the other team. But how about Mike Tomlin? It's on him. It is. Every single time. The Patriots AFC Championship game in 2016, those things were terrible, and it has to, at some point, be pointed to the offense or the head coach that every single time in the last 5 years since has hired the wrong OCs, and defensively they have underachieved because they're over-reliant on star talent. They can't win without TJ Watt brand. They're 0-7. So it can't just be, oh, he had to deal with Antonio Brown. Oh, he has the resume. Ultimately, he got Bill Cowher's team. That's how it was in 2008. That's how he won a Super Bowl. He didn't build that team. This is his team. And you want to know what it is? 0 playoff wins the last 5 years. The Browns have more. Many franchises have more. You look at elite head coaches, in the same time, the Patriots have 16 playoff wins. Andy Reid, 9. They have the quarterback for sure. Sean McVay, 7. And Kyle Shanahan, 9. The Steelers have 3. 3-7. This is a problem. At some point, we have to point at the head coach because he's the common denominator here. Sure, he can't win. He won 8 games without Big Ben in 2019. That's because all the right things came together with the team that gave up a first-round draft pick to have that elite defense. He didn't really do a bit. He didn't have a big role in developing a TJ Watt to a defensive player of the year candidate perennially.
But I asked you a question. So who's out there? Who do you want?
Currently, no one. You asked me this 6 months ago or 8 months ago, Brian Daboll, Mike McDaniel. I'm taking both of those guys over Tomlin. I don't look resume. I look at who I rather want maximizing my team. And it's not. It's very simple to me.
I mean, listen, you can say, yeah, I want Brian Daboll or I'd want Mike McDaniel, but you could easily hire the wrong head coach and hire a Zach Taylor-like head coach or a Brandon Staley-like head coach. And then you're screwed for what, the next 3 to 4 years?
And it's also the Steelers. You would think people be interested in this job more than the Bengals. I ask you, has Mike Tomlin held back the Steelers?
No.
Not at all.
No, I don't know.
With the worst play callers in football the last 5 years, he hasn't by making those decisions. He's the one doing that.
Okay, that again, but that's not head coaching. That's him being a GM more.
Brandon, that's a part of it. Head coach is overseeing everything and hiring the people if you're not the play caller. How is that not related?
All right, if he is not hiring the right play call people, I'll say, okay, he's not hiring the right play call people and he's got to do a better job at that. But I'm not going to sit here and say it's all on Mike Tomlin because I think Mike Tomlin is a great head coach.
What has he done?
I think he's a phenomenal leader. That is
Where's the leadership on Sunday where they got blasted by 35?
Okay, but again, they're going up against a team that is number 1 in offense and number 2 in defense with a rookie quarterback making his first start. TJ Watt is gone. Minka Fitzpatrick, did he play well that game? You said he played phenomenal. Did he play well that game? No, he didn't.
Very close to having a crazy pick.
He got scored on twice, basically. listen, I'm not going to sit here and all I'll say is this: like, if you don't think like the Chargers or the Bengals are going, go ahead, release Mike Tomlin. We'll take him right freaking now. And if you don't think he'll change life there, then you're crazy. I'm just saying the grass isn't always greener on the other side, John.
The grass isn't green right now, champ. It's not.
Okay.
It's wet and mucky. The Chargers, they can have fun hiring the Ron OCs again because Tomlin can't do it. That's the most important thing if you're the CEO, hiring the right staff. And he's failed to do that. Hasn't had the right coordinators in a long time. And it's an absolute debacle. It really is. I'm sick and tired of people just giving him a pass because he's flashy, he's a cool guy to listen to. I mean, it's ridiculous.
That's John's feelings on it. I mean, I just say listen, man, you don't know you missed something until it's gone. So we'll see in the future.
I'm
but
not
moving
gonna
on
miss
to
this.
Moving on to week 6 of the NFL. The first game we're going to cover today is the New York Giants taking on the Baltimore Ravens. It's going to be in New York, actually East Rutherford, New Jersey. They don't really want to tell you that, but we all know it's true. And the Baltimore Ravens are favored by -5.5 points. Now, I'm going to read you off a couple of stats, John, then I'm going to give it to you. The Giants allow 131.6 yards rushing per game. That's 25th in the NFL. Now, their passing defense is ranked 8th in the NFL. They're only allowing 194 yards a game. Baltimore's rushing attack is ranked 7th. Their offense is their passing game is ranked 21st, and that's right behind the John proclaimed offensively challenged New England Patriots. So I kick it to you, John. Will these teams be able to take advantage of the not very good play from either sides of the ball? Will either one, because some of them aren't playing good. Like the Ravens passing offense is not playing well. Or I should say, actually, the Giants passing offense is not playing well. It's 31st in the league, only in front of the Bears. But the Ravens are ranked 31st in the NFL or 32nd in the NFL in passing offense. They allow the most yards. So will that play a factor? Will the Giants' terrible passing offense be able to take advantage of the Ravens' terrible pass defense?
No. This game's a matter of quarterback. Lamar Jackson versus Daniel Jones. Last week we saw Aaron Rodgers lose, but I just felt the Giants outcoached the Packers. This week, John Harbaugh, he's done a fine job this year. He's had some criticism, but with the Ravens, they're getting healthy at a key time in the season. They're 3-2 coming off of a strong win, a close one at that, but still an impressive win against the Bengals on Monday night through turbulence. Lamar missed key throws that could have cost them the game. And I think for a guy that was the clear-cut top 2 guy for MVP 2 weeks ago, this is a get-right game for Lamar. The Giants' secondary this year has held up fine, but I don't think that stays. Rashad Bateman, we'll see if he plays. This Ravens offense is just too explosive, too dynamic, and the defense itself has way too much talent to not win this game.
Yeah, I think Marlon Humphreys is definitely going to do a very well job against these not very high-rated Giants receivers. The Giants' passing defense, though, is ranked 8th in the NFL, which is very good. That's going to be an interesting matchup to see the Ravens pass offense versus the Giants pass defense. The Ravens, though, +5 in turnover differential. That's tied for second. So, they're even if they are turning the football over, they're getting the turnovers right back. The Giants, which is an interesting stat, they have 0 interceptions, but 6 fumble recoveries. So they haven't picked the ball off once this year. So I wonder if that changes on Sunday afternoon. But I agree with you, John. This is Lamar. And if you're talking quarterbacks, Lamar versus Daniel Jones, it's not even a conversation. Give me the Ravens. Sorry, New York Giants fans. This is your probably toughest game of the season besides the Cowboys. Yeah, give me the Ravens. I think the Ravens are gonna. I mean, allowing 31.6 yards rushing per game for the Giants, Lamar and J.K. Dobbins are gonna have a field day, in my opinion.
And speaking of the injuries, Ronnie Stanley comes back last week against the Bengals and looked pretty good after missing a lot of time working his way in. Rashad Bateman missed last week's game. He'll be coming back. I think he should be back in the next couple of weeks. But also Marcus Williams on the IR. That's probably the biggest loss of that defense. Whereas Tyus Bowser and their newest draft pick and David Ajabo, he's actually from Michigan, where their new defensive coordinator coached last. They're now back to practice, and those are two edge rushers that really can add versatility and explosiveness that they've just lacked up front.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, the Marcus Williams loss is that's a key one. I mean, the Giants are ranked second in the NFL in running, behind Cleveland, and in front of, surprisingly, Atlanta's got the third best rushing offense in the league, which is pretty insane. I would have never guessed that. But yeah, I just think Lamar is going to have a field day on this run defense of the Giants. And sorry, Giants fans. Sorry, JQ. But moving on. I think we're going to dive into, John is going to tell you guys a little bit about our sponsor over at BetStamp.
Yes, indeed. So around here at the Wise Guys podcast, we're all getting more and more into the world of sports betting. And in this avenue, you want to maximize your profits. That's the most important thing when you're betting on sports. Get the most out of your return and get the most out of your time, more specifically. BetStamp is your go-to all-in-one platform that's dedicated to putting all the sports books in one single place. All you have to do is download the BetStamp app and check out all their affiliates. You sign up, and all of a sudden you have visuals to help you out. And that way, you're going to be knowing you're going to have not only skin in the game, but you're going to know the exact market, educating yourself on something that's going to make you more money. And to go to their app and use our affiliate or a referral code at WiseGuys, that's WISEGUYS. You'll be helping us out. You'll be doing yourself a favor. It's really a win-win-win for all three of us. So be sure to check out their affiliate link. Even if you want to sell picks, you can. Royalty-free. They won't take a cut or a commission. I think for anyone out there, given it's a free app, it's one of the most useful platforms, and it's very simple to navigate as well.
100%. If it's free, like our boy Justin says, if it's free, it's for me. So check out BetStamp and use the referral code, as John said, Wise Guys. All right, so jumping in to the next game, probably the biggest game of the week, which me and John are very, very shocked by, but really shouldn't be shocked by because the NFL does this a lot, where they just miss the boat. The game of the year for a lot of people last year, maybe the greatest game, some people say, that they've ever seen last year in the playoffs, the rematch of the AFC divisional matchup last year. The Kansas City Chiefs are taking on the Buffalo Bills in Kansas City, but Buffalo is favored by 2.5. Now, John, I don't know if you knew this, but this is the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career that he is the underdog, the betting underdog, at home. First time ever. Interesting. Now, I will tell you a little facts about this game, John, and then I'll kick it to you. Tre'Davious White, he's off PUP, but he's not playing this week. Sean McDermott already said that. He's not coming back this week. But Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, their head-to-head record, Mahomes leads at 3-1. That's almost like Brady versus Manning, but not quite. Brady started 6-0 against Peyton Manning. So, John, I'm going to kick it to you. Tell me your thoughts about this game. Mahomes, first-time underdog in his career at home. What do you think?
First off, I'm looking at the Chiefs and the Bills. Those are probably the two toughest places to play right now in the NFL. Would you disagree on that? I don't know if there's any place I'd rather not play at than Arrowhead.
Yeah, I've heard from a lot of former players that Arrowhead is probably the loudest stadium, which is crazy because it's an outdoor stadium. But, obviously you got your Seattle with the 12th man and whatnot. But Philadelphia is a tough place to play. But yeah, these are the Bills fans travel very well, and the Kansas City fans, they are raucous.
And the Kansas City fans, it's really like a college stadium. It's like a Saturday game day, which is ridiculous. But when you're this darn good, and you got to maximize that window. So in terms of injuries, Jordan Poyer's working his way back. The Bills still are banged up in the back end because Micah Hyde is out for the season. And like you said, Tre'Davious White can't come back until week 8. So those are 2 key pieces. That being said, they didn't have much trouble last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That secondary looked very good for the first half of the game when they're actually playing. This Bills offense is just too explosive. I had them come in Arrowhead, and for some reason this isn't a primetime game, which is an absolute indictment. And at 4:25, giving this Chiefs defense fits. Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Khalil Shakur, Quentin Morris came out last week and had a very good game without Dawson Knox. And Josh Allen, Brandon, I have never seen a quarterback like him in all my years watching football. He's going to come into Arrowhead, throw for 350 plus passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing, and most of all, these Bills are getting a W. And they're going to start off the season at the top of the power rankings. The ultimate question is, when they face again the playoffs, who's going to win that?
So let me give you a little insight to this game, right? The Buffalo Bills have the number 1 offense in the league. They're number 1 in passing. They're 14th in rushing. They also have the number 2 defense in the league, number 4 against the pass, and number 2 against the run. They're +2 in turnover differential. That's tied for 4th. Kansas City's offense is ranked 6th overall. They're 4th in passing, 24th in, 18th in the run. Their defense is number 14 overall. They are 24th against the pass, but they are number 3 against the run. Now they have allowed, they're 24th in the league in points allowed. But Buffalo and Kansas City, this is a game that's going to be very interesting because Buffalo and Kansas City is ranked number 1. Buffalo is ranked number 2 in scoring offenses going into this game. And I should say Buffalo's defense is tied for number 1 in the NFL in points allowed. They allow 12.2 points per game, tied with San Francisco. Now, to read you off a stat about Mahomes versus number 1 scoring defenses, John, is 6-1. We just saw him against the number 1 scoring defense actually 2 weeks ago, because entering week 4, the Buccaneers were the number 1 scoring defense, and we saw what happened. In those games, the Chiefs offense, averaged 31 points per game. Mahomes averages 322.4 passing yards per game. He's got a 15-7 touchdown interception ratio and a 94.3 passer rating. I think this is going to be a very close game. And when you bring up the playoff game and you bring up Stephon Diggs coming off a big game, well, Stephon Diggs is going to have to do a lot better than what he did last time that these two teams face. Because I'm looking at his stats right now.
Does he?
6 target. Huh?
I don't think he has to.
All right. If you think, okay. But I will just say he had 6 targets, 3 catches, and 7 yards last year. All right. Actually, in the playoffs, he didn't really perform well. He had 6 receptions for 67 yards and no touchdowns in the playoffs last year. I think this is going to be a close game. And we all know how I feel, and we all know the history of Josh Allen in close games, right? In 1-score games, Josh Allen is now 1-7. Whip-de-doo, he won 1 game against the Baltimore Ravens this year. If you're a Josh Allen fan, I would not use that as a argument to say he can do it now, because you're still spewing off of 1-7. Congratulations, you won 1. You still lost 7 other. And I won't get into those games yet. Maybe I'll save that for another time when Justin's here, because I know he specifically asked for those games, and I have the games in front of me, and I have some Josh Allen stats and stuff that he did wrong, but I'm going to wait for Justin to be back on the show to read those off. I'm going to take Patrick Mahomes. I don't think the Bills' W's have really been against good competition, minus the Rams opening kickoff. And again, I always say week 1 is the biggest wild card of the year. And we see how the Rams' offensive line has just been completely garbage for the whole year. Minus against bad competition, they've been solid. But beating the Steelers, congratulations. Beating the Titans, okay. And then beating the Ravens, Josh Allen didn't really look that impressive in that game. It wasn't a very impressive win. I think the Chiefs have they beat the LA Chargers. I know Herbert got injured that game, but J.C. Jackson was coming back that game. I think Bosa was healthy, if I'm not mistaken, still. Keenan Allen was out, but Mike Williams balled out. A lot of people picked the Chargers to win that game. They've beaten the Bucs, who are my Super Bowl prediction team this year. And they beat the Raiders, who are possibly the best 1-4 team of all time. Possibly. I'm going to take Mahomes. He's 3-1 against Allen. So give me Mahomes in Kansas City. Look at his numbers against number 1 scoring defenses. It's a close game. I think the Bills are going to fumble the bag like they usually do.
You're making me sick with this. Yes, the Bills beat the Bills beat the Rams, the Steelers, and the Titans. You want to know what the margin was in those 3 games total?
I know. They beat them bad.
85 points. So on average, they beat those 3 teams by nearly 30.
Mm-hmm.
How is that not impressive to beat the defending Super Bowl champs by 21 in their home stadium?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, John, before the season, you said the Rams aren't even going to win a playoff game this year.
Yeah.
After week 1, you said they're done.
And then you do that 2 more times. When you look at this matchup, it's Steelers and the Titans.
Oh, no, but you said the defending Super Bowl champions. The Steelers, again, not that impressive.
You wash Tennessee by 34.
When you consider Tennessee, we all agreed. I think you were the only one that was a little bit hesitant, not predicting the downfall of the Titans. I'm not high on the Titans this year. I've never really been high on Ryan Tannehill. Again, not super impressive of a win for me.
They're playing winning football, the Titans. I thought the year was over after they got obliterated by the Bills.
I never said they're not playing winning football. They're winning games, but the wins are not impressive to me. They really aren't.
I don't
now,
know
if you beat Kansas City in a close game, that will be impressive. But I don't think that's going to happen because, again, you bring up the blowouts. Okay, that's fine. Not every game is going to be a blowout. Not every game in the playoffs is going to be like you like to bring up the Patriots versus the Bills game where you're playing a rookie quarterback. Okay? You're going to be playing a Kansas City, a Baltimore, maybe Cincinnati. Chargers could be in there.
That says a lot about how explosive this team is. Gabe Davis, 28 yards per reception this year, leads the NFL. They don't need Diggs to have 2 touchdowns, though. He's playing right now at the level of a top 5 guy. There's so much versatility in this offense. When we talk about the 2 best quarterbacks in football, the 2 best offenses currently, 2 top 5 head coaches, an elite defense in Buffalo, and a good one in Kansas City, these right now are the 2 best teams in the NFL.
Is this an elite defense, though?
At full capacity, yes. They're playing with the misfit secondary, and it's been elite. It's been top 5 this year, so that's pretty crazy. Missing an all-pro and Trey White.
I have question marks. About their defense, if I'm going to be honest. I think last year they were a high-ranked rushing defense, and then when they played really good running offenses, they got worked. You can look that up. That's a fact. But I have question marks about this defense. I really do. When there's another elite team on there going up against them, I have question marks. And honestly, I have question marks against any number 1 offensive team versus the Chiefs aren't a number 1 offensive team, but they're a high-rated offensive team is what I'm trying to say. Against a high-ranking defense, to me, especially in the league we are now, the offense is always going to have the leg up on the defense. They just are. The defense, when the game starts, they're already playing with a leg behind. But yeah, I'm going to take Kansas City in that game. I think it's going to be a close game. I could see it being 38-35, something like that. If you want to give a final score, then we'll move on to Sunday Night Football.
35-28.
35.
No field goals, man. And we'll see if Harrison Butker plays in this game. The Chiefs have sorely missed him through the first 5 weeks.
He is questionable. So, all right, moving on to Sunday Night Football. We got the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. In Philadelphia, Philly, I want to just make sure I got this right. If the odds changed over the night, Philadelphia, nope, is still favored by 6 points. Jalen Hurts against the Cowboys in his career, 0-2. Both games were in Dallas, albeit, all right. But his QBRs in those games, a 15 and a 12. So terrible. He's played terrible against the Dallas Cowboys. Another team that I'm not highly impressed with their wins and their opponents this year. Just to tell you those teams' overall defensive rankings, Detroit, 31st in the NFL. Minnesota, 24th in the NFL. Washington, 18th. Now, Jacksonville, top 10 defense. They're 9th in the NFL. Arizona, 17th. You're going up against the Cowboys. I don't have their defensive ranking right in front of me. I think they're a top 10 defense, if I'm not mistaken. Top 3. Okay. But this game is just, for me, the Cowboys with the backup quarterback, they've had a more impressive run of things. They beat the reigning AFC champs in the Bengals. They beat the surprise team of the year, the New York Football Giants, and the Giants' only loss is to Dallas. And I know you might come back at me and say, well, Brandon, you can't say that the Bills win over the Rams is impressive, but the Bills win over the Rams is not impressive, but the Cowboys win over the Rams is impressive. Well, yes, I can, because one team has a Josh Allen and one team has a Cooper Rush. That's why I'm saying it's impressive. And it's in week 5, so it's a couple weeks down the line. So that is an impressive win to me for the Cowboys with Cooper Rush beating the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Los Angeles Rams, especially in LA, where a lot of people thought the Rams could get back on track that game because they were playing Cooper Rush. The Eagles of 2021, 0-7 versus playoff teams. Now, I was mistaken when I said this in our last episode or 2 episodes ago, where I said Philly is still yet to prove that. They did face the Cardinals last week, and they beat the Cardinals, who were a playoff team last year. But I don't think that's highly impressive of a win. Everybody on the show has not been high on the Arizona Cardinals coming into the season. And I don't think anybody's changed that opinion. I think maybe we even think a little bit less of them, seeing them. Like, yes, the Cardinals are an explosive offense, but at times they are, but just really as a totality, the defense is not very good and the offense has its flaws. And they don't have DeAndre Hopkins. The Cowboys are a playoff team last year, right? So now the Eagles are going to be playing another playoff team for the second week in a row. But there's no Dak Prescott. So again, there's a little bit of a caveat for me. Now I'm going to sit here and I'm going to I thought about this for a little bit last night when I was doing my pick'ems. And it just came down to the fact that Jalen Hurts hasn't really been tested this year. And I think he's going to be tested this week. Micah Parsons is coming at him. Now, the Eagles have one of the best offensive lines in football, if not the best. They have one of the best running games in football. But I think Micah Parsons is carrying this Dallas Cowboys team on his back. And I think that he is going to have a big game. He's going to need to have a big game for the Cowboys to win. They're going to have to get at Jalen Hurts, and they're going to have to get at him early and often. Set the tempo early. Hit him. Knock him on his ass early. I'm going to take the Cowboys in a very close game. Now, for the Cowboys to win, they're going to have to hold this offense to probably 20 points at most. Maybe 23 is pushing it. But I think Cooper Rush can game manage this game. Now they're playing a very good defense. But I think the O-line of the Cowboys is playing well. I think the running game is very, it's dynamic. You got the two guys, Zeke and Pollard. CD is starting to come on a little more. Hopefully Dalton Schultz can get into the offense. Michael Gallup is back. I'm going to put my faith into Micah Parsons and that defense in a very, very close game. I really don't have a score. Maybe 23-20 Cowboys.
This is one of the biggest season-defining games for both teams. Two squads that have massively exceeded expectation. Two quarterbacks who have proven a lot of people wrong. Two coaches that have stepped up big time. And most of all, for each of these two teams, they have their toughest matchup yet this year. I have the Eagles winning this game. And the reason why is, you look at this Cowboys defense, it's not just Micah Parsons. Trayvon Diggs has been playing a superstar level in the back end. Not Dexter Lawrence, he's on the Giants. DeMarcus Lawrence has been having a very good season. When I look back at that Giants game where Micah was going toe-to-toe with Andrew Thomas at left tackle, it was all Lawrence. Had 3 sacks in the day game to Daniel Jones. But in this matchup, the Eagles' offensive line is light years ahead of the Giants. Altogether, it's one of, if not the best in the entire NFL. Jason Kelce playing last week through injury. Even still, the Eagles bring a level of physicality and toughness in the trenches that sets the tone. For this Cowboys defense, they haven't seen much like it this year. But the unique thing is, the selling point, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, I can't speak, Isaac Seumalo, and Jason Kelce are all banged up. Each of those 4 guys are on the injury report this week. If one of them misses time, if one of them is not right, that opens up an opportunity for Dallas's defense and Dan Quinn to do some big-time things. At the end of the day, I'm going with the Eagles, though, because they have more talent. They have the better quarterback by far. Hurts has slowed down the last couple of weeks, but this for him is a game where he can get back on track. A.J. Brown is just a physical specimen, a freak of nature. Devonta Smith was a Heisman winner for a reason. And defensively, this Eagles defense against that Cowboys offense, which has been bad this year, I mean, I don't see how the Cowboys are scoring more than 2 touchdowns in this game. They'll be lucky to get up 17 points. They've been truly elite on both ends of the football, Philadelphia. And this is their statement win that's going to patent a 6-0 record to start the year.
Yeah, I definitely think that the Dallas Cowboys defense is going to have to directly impact the Cowboys offense scoring. They're going to have to give them short fields, get turnovers, if not get a fumble or pick six. I think Trayvon Diggs is more than capable of doing that, especially against a Jalen Hurts. He could trick him in some way in the game.
What are the Cowboys' keys to winning?
Keys? Defense. Hold them. You got to hold them to 20 at most, like I said. And that might be a little bit too much, but that seems to be the recipe. I mean, 15 to 17 points seems to be the recipe for the Cowboys. So hold them to right around there. The defense has to play lights out. The running game has to be very effective. It's got to be very similar to the Rex Ryan Jets of yesteryear. Run the football, play great defense. That's it. That's the formula right now.
I think it's three things. Make the Eagles one-dimensional offensively. Generate turnovers, like you said. So win the turnover battle. That's the key here. And last but not least, CeeDee Lamb, Tony Pollard, Zeke, those guys have to go off. This Eagles team is talented at every level. And so for CeeDee Lamb to have a big-time day against Darius Slay, all those the entire secondary in Philadelphia, James Bradbury, it will be required this week.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to week 6 pick'em. All right, John, we're going to kick off with Thursday Night Football. What a terrible game for Thursday Night Football. The Washington Commanders taking on the Chicago Bears in Chicago. The game is even. It's a pick'em game. I went back and forth with this, and I go with Washington. I go with Washington.
The Commanders have their backs against the wall. Ron Rivera is coaching for his job. I got them winning. And after last week, where he said one word in a press conference when asked why he's behind this division quarterback, this Commanders team's screwed. Their defense is abysmal, but the Bears may as well be the worst team in football. So I guess Washington's winning.
Yeah. All right. Next up, the New England Patriots going to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Cleveland favored by 2.5. Listen, man, I know the run game can be the Patriots' defense kryptonite, but I think Bill Belichick has a game plan to shut down Jacoby Brissett, make him beat us, and I'm going to take the New England Patriots in a very close game. Bailey Zappi's going to win another game. There is no QB controversy in New England, but I'm putting my faith in Bill. That defense playing lights out.
Cleveland has too much talent, my friend. Myles Garrett's getting acclimated after missing the game against the Falcons 2 weeks ago. And the Patriots offense, while they've had good moments against the Lions, who were depleted or injury ravaged, this Browns team has too much talent for the Patriots to compete.
All right. Next up, San Francisco going to Hotlanta, to take on the Falcons. San Francisco favored by 5.5. Give me San Francisco. There's really no question or debate in that.
Well, I wouldn't go that far because the Falcons against the Rams and the Buccaneers have made two games that weren't close, very close at the end. They've been nail biters. And if it weren't for that roughing the passer on Tom Brady, I think Marcus Mariota would have had a chance to beat
Yeah, but
Tom.
they wouldn't. I don't think so.
He had a chance. But yeah, man, give me Jimmy G.
Next up, we got the Jets, the New York Jets, taking on the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Packers coming off a terrible loss. Two bad performances in a row, to be honest with you. Green Bay is still favored by 7.5, so Vegas is still saying we put our trust in Aaron Rodgers. And you know what? I'm going to agree with Vegas. I'm going to put my trust in Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he's going to lose back-to-back games. I'm not on this Jets bandwagon that everybody is. I think that they are better than what they were before, but I don't think that they are the team that everybody's hyping them up to be. So give me Green Bay, give me the Packers. I think their defense gets back on track and has a big day this week.
I would put some respect on this Jets team. They have a better defense right now than the Packers. Have a very good group up front with Quentin Williams and John Franklin Myers, Carl Lawson. And that secondary, DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner, who had a big-time game last couple of weeks. The Jets very easily can win this game. And while they're on the road, this is another week for Green Bay where they've been outcoached a handful of times this year. Their defense has been absolutely a train wreck with how much talent is on this team. I'm going the Packers here, but I don't feel good about it because this team is going downhill south. Nothing is changing for them right now. Poor coaching.
Yep, Matt LaFleur. Now, speaking of another team that would definitely line up to sign a Mike Tomlin. But next up, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Indianapolis Colts. They're headed to Indianapolis. Indy's favored by 2 points. Indy's looked better last couple of weeks than they did to start the season. I think they're going to rectify what they did in week 2 with that terrible performance, getting shut out by the Jaguars. It's in Indianapolis this time. Give me Indy. I think Jonathan Taylor's going to play this game. So, yeah, give me Indy. I think they get a little revenge this game.
Rough last 2 weeks for the Jaguars. This is an opportunity for Trevor Lawrence to get right against a very good opponent that's in the division lead right now. I'm going the Colts here, but they may as well be the worst 500 team in football. You know what? Screw it. I'm going the Jaguars. I feel terrible about this Colts offense. Matt Ryan is going down like a pup. You hit him and he's falling down on the ground. All due respect. One thing with the Packers, I don't even blame Matt LaFleur as much as I do Joe Barry. The dude just plays like the entire middle of the field is just open. It's just a soft quarters coverage. It drives me insane. But
all right, next up, we got the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Miami Dolphins. In Miami, Minnesota is favored by 3 points. Tua is not playing this week. Neither is Teddy Bridgewater. It's the 7th-round pick. I believe his name is Skylar Thompson, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, if Teddy Bridgewater was playing, I'd take Miami, but give me Minnesota. The 7th-round kid, I don't. No, sorry.
This is a pretty tough way to make your first NFL start. And the Vikings this year have been very good in non-primetime games. Kirk Cousins relatively looks comfortable, but we know what Kirk Cousins is. It drives me insane. Last week, he has a very good game, then throws a pretty rough pick. It's just the consistency with Kirk. But this Dolphins team right now is far from 100%. I think it's going to take them another week to get back above 500. So a tough way for the Dolphins to lose 3 straight games, but I have the Vikings pinching this one out 24-21.
Yep. All right, next up, we got the Cincinnati Bengals headed to the Superdome to take on the New Orleans Saints. Cincinnati is favored by 1.5. Jameis is still not playing, I believe. Give me Cincinnati. They gotta. I mean, yeah, they gotta get it together, man. They really do. And honestly, it's very disappointing this year. But give me Cincinnati.
Michael Thomas still did not practice with his foot injury. Jarvis Landry and ankle as well. Those 2 guys can miss this game. And keep in mind, Chris Olave has a concussion. So this Saints offense, which we all expected to be above average this year, it's been solid. Jameis is back to practice, limited participant. Honestly, if I'm the Saints, I'm rolling with Andy Dalton at this point now. He's just been a better, more consistent guy under center. And for a team that's not well coached, Dennis Allen's been pretty poor this year, one of the worst coaches in football. I want the veteran who's going to just manage the game and run the offense properly and not put us behind. So, I got the Bengals winning this one. The Saints, they better get ready for a top 5 pick.
I wonder who could have predicted that Sean Payton's leaving would heavily impact this team. Nobody wanted to listen to me before the season, but it's okay. All right, we covered the Giants and Ravens. Next up, Johnny boy, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on them Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. Tampa's favored by 8 points. Is it really even a question? Tom Brady likes to beat up on those Pittsburgh Steelers. Give me Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers by a lot. They definitely cover the 8 points.
It is insane. The Steelers are home, and it's only 8. I mean, it should be 14, like it was last week against the Bills. This Steelers team is depleted. Deontay Johnson's been playing poorly recently, but Ahkello Witherspoon did not practice the hamstring. Levi Wallace and Pat Freiermuth both have concussions. They're in protocol. Terrell Emmons, he should be back from his concussion. Too many concussions this year. It's really upsetting, especially for a guy that loves Pat Freiermuth. It's very painful. And Minkah Fitzpatrick's working his way back from a knee injury. So is their backup tight end that's now starting in Zach Gentry. All things considered, this Buccaneers team right now is a borderline elite unit, and this is going to get ugly probably. Good luck to Kenny Pickett in his first home start, but Bucks.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we got another game that's probably going to be a blowout. We got the Carolina Panthers with a new head coach in Steve Wilks and a new starting quarterback in PJ Walker, taking on the Los Angeles Rams in LA in SoFi Stadium. The Rams are favored by 10 points. I think the Rams are going to beat up on the Panthers. I think they're going to take out a lot of their aggression this year on the Panthers. I think Aaron Donald's going to have a big game. Jalen might have a pick or 2.
Who are the Rams beat up on?
I think Matt Stafford's going to have a big game with Cooper Kupp. Hopefully the O-line doesn't give it. Even though I will give it, the Panthers defense is very good. It is a very good unit. But I think that they're going to be put on the field way too much by their offense not being able to sustain drives and turning the football over. So give me the Rams in a blowout.
Yeah, it won't be a blowout. I mean, number one, the Rams this year, they've been lucky to win by more than a score. They're still trying to work their way back, and they've been so banged up. I think it'll be a closer game than you expect. No Baker, obviously. Give me the Rams, but, I mean, Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp both have foot issues. They're going to play on Sunday, but the Rams are not a good football team, and it's going to take them weeks to really improve.
Next up, we got the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. Arizona's favored by 3 points. This is a NFC West divisional game. Give me the Cardinals. I know the Seahawks offense have been playing very well, especially Geno Smith. Kudos to him. But yeah, I just think I'm going to put my faith more in Kyler and that offense to put up more points than the Seattle offense.
Yes. So Rashad Penny's out for the season, which is a crucial blow. He's been legitimately a top 10 back when healthy. And I got to go with Arizona here because Geno this year has been a top 10 quarterback. He's been phenomenal. The improvement, it's been incredible. But I have to lean in the Cardinals' favor because I don't see it quite sustain itself for the Seahawks offense. But look out for Kenneth Walker, the rookie back at Michigan State. If you don't have him in fantasy, I don't know what you're doing in your league, but that dude's going to have a crazy year.
Yeah. All right, we covered Bills Chiefs. We covered Sunday Night Football. So to end off the Week 6 slate, Monday Night Football, the Denver Broncos taking on the Los Angeles Chargers in LA. The Chargers are favored by -4.5. Give me the Chargers. This game honestly should be a lot bigger. Should have a lot more at stake, but it doesn't. Both teams have been disappointing. Yeah, give me the Chargers. I feel like this should be like a mainstay game that a lot of people are talking about, but it's just not because of how disappointing both teams have been.
And the Chargers partially coaching, but largely it's the Chargers' luck. Slater, Bosa, Keenan Allen's working his way back. This is going to probably be a disappointing game, just like these teams have been this season. I wouldn't bet on this game. I would not put any money close to it because we don't know what Russell Wilson's going to look like coming off of that shoulder procedure. Give me the Chargers. I don't know. I don't really have much insight because these teams are so unpredictable. And Justin Herbert's been much better this year. Russell Wilson's been well below average. So I have to tilt that direction.
Yep. All right. So that ends our NFL Week 6 pick'ems. And talking about the NFL for this week, now we're going to move on to the NBA. The season is right around the corner. Next Tuesday is the opening. What do they call it? The opening tip-off, I guess, right? Of the NBA season. What's the first game, John? It's Golden State versus
the Grizzlies.
Grizzlies? Okay. So we are going to be ranking the NBA Southeast Division today. John, I'm going to kick it to you first. I think we're going to actually have both different number one teams. Maybe our top 3 teams are going to be in different orders because I think mine is in a little bit of a surprising order. So I'm going to hear who's your number one team entering this season for the Southeast Division?
Actually, 3 teams that are all at the top for the Mavericks, the Grizzlies, and the Pelicans. All 3 of them have real fighters' punches, to make it to the conference finals this year. Maybe if all goes well, the NBA finals. For me, number 1 is the Dallas Mavericks. They have the best player in this division. And ultimately, the Mavericks this offseason lose Jalen Brunson to the Knicks, and they don't quite replace him with another perimeter go-to initiator. They add in Jaden Hardy in the second round of the draft, a bucket getter out of the G League that is very unpolished as a 19-year-old. Spencer Dinwiddie will be back for a second season, and then they trade for Christian Wood, who will be coming off of the bench while JaVale McGee starts at the 5. This Dallas team is the best one Luka has had around him yet. They don't have Porzingis, but quite frankly, he was not much of a contributor. Okay, he wasn't often playing more than 55 games. Now you have Maxi Kleber. He looked very good last year and while healthy. In a defense that last year around Jason Kidd maximized its parts. I don't think the Mavericks got better this offseason because of the Brunson loss. But Luka was working hard this offseason in Eurobasket. He's going to come into camp probably for the first time in shape. And most of all, there's the perfect continuity here for the Mavericks to level up in the regular season. Most people don't expect them to be a top 3 seed, but there is a gateway for that if Luka plays 75 games. And I wouldn't pick him to be my MVP, but I do think Christian Wood this year will win Sixth Man of the Year. He is the perfect fit next to Luka. And in Houston, he averaged 23 and I think it was 8 or 9 rebounds in about 7 games playing with James Harden. And Luka is cut from that very same cloth of a pick and roll ball handler that can make every pocket pass, lobs, whatever it may be. Christian Wood can do his thing off the second unit, create for himself. He's a guy that's going to go back to the basket. Defensively, he's been terrible largely, but you can make a case he can play the 4 next to a more traditional rim protector. And all of a sudden, Dallas has a very nice spark off the bench. The other one I want to highlight for them is Tim Hardaway coming back from injury. So the Mavericks are number 1 for me.
Yeah, so mine is listen, I'll say this right off the bat. My 1 and 2 teams can easily be flipped. Excuse me. I'm only putting this team number 1 because I'm going to bet on them being healthy. Well, not bet on, but I'm counting on them being healthy this year. Especially, you know who I'm talking about, Zion Williamson. My number 1 team is the New Orleans Pelicans. Zion is healthy. He looks really good. He looks like he's in shape this year. They got the quote-unquote big 3, not really a big 3, but you know what I mean, in name value. They've got Zion, they got B.I., and they got C.J. They still got Big V, Jonas Valanciunas at center, who last year was a where the hell is my numbers? A 17 and 11 guy on 55% shooting from the field, 36 from 3, and 78% from the free throw line. That's very good. The second unit is very young, so they're going to be able to, run around and use those fresh legs to help play defense or initiate offense, score. Willie Green, I know he's a lot of people are very high on him. He started out 1-12 last year, but was able to finish with 36 and 46 records. So that's being able to overcome adversity and show that, even if you're down, you're able to fight through those dark times. I think the major concern with this team, besides injury, obviously, as number 1, is the defense. This was a big problem when it was – I always get them – it's Van Gundy. It was Steve Van Gundy,
Aquaman?
Right? Who is their head coach?
Stan Van Gundy.
Stan Van Gundy?
Steve's the one on television.
Steve's the one on television who I love.
Stan
he is
too.
They both are, but Steve he's legendary with his comments and his straightforward bluntness. Yeah. But Stan Van Gundy, I remember watching some of their games. I think they made it to the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. That was the bubble year, I think. I just remember the commentators talking about this team can score with anybody. Like that's not the problem. Their scoring is not the problem. They can't stop anybody. And when you can't stop nobody, well, guess what? If you start stringing a couple of, possessions together that aren't scoring and you're getting scored on consistently on the other end, you're going to lose probably 9 times out of 10. So that's what's got to fix is Zion has to buy in defensively. B.I. has to buy in defensively. CJ's obviously not a defender, but you got Valanciunas, who is a 7-footer. He can rim protect, not an elite level, but, at least he's a 7-footer. He can be there. They've got some guys. John may be able to highlight that a little bit more than me, but I'm going to pick the Pelicans as my number 1 team going in.
I think it's a very good pick. Pelican fans, it is time to get really excited. Last year, this team started, I reckon, 3-16, and they made the playoffs. Now, in the bubble, they did miss out, and at large, that was because Zion played barely 20 games. He came into the NBA, and what speaks volumes about Zion was that he was immediately an All-NBA player, almost. He was averaging 20-something on, a minutes restriction, and his first step, athleticism, strength, and flair to score around the rim in a way we have almost never seen. Like Shaq, he didn't even score in the way Zion does because Zion's 6'7". It's what makes him a true generational talent. And the biggest thing for the Pelicans this offseason, maybe the most important move, was getting Zion on that extension. I think we should have known, but people, much like Donovan Mitchell, wanted Zion out of New Orleans. And it wasn't fair to Zion with all he was going through. Now he's in the right mental place. And much like the Joel Embiid extension, if he misses time, it's not fully guaranteed. So I thought for David Griffin, a guy who the last couple of years, his first few in New Orleans were god-awful, he has done almost everything right over the last year. You talked about their defense. And the reason this team reminds me of the Chicago Bulls last year is because 4 of their starters are just bad defenders. Zion defensively, it was somewhat effort, but also he doesn't move quite well enough laterally to guard on the perimeter. He's a tweener. Jonas Valanciunas, he's big, but there is a reason Steven Adams went to Memphis and fit right in on their defense, and they improved. Not a very good defender. CJ McCollum is a very good shot blocker, especially in transition, but just lacks size. He's going to take more of a playmaking role for this team. He is the true starting point guard in this lineup that can knock down shots off the dribble. But talk about Brandon Ingram. He comes in this year and says, look, man, when I go home, all I did was just watch 97-98 Jordan. I might have 96-97. That's all I do. I just watch basketball. I can't imagine anyone working harder than me. Brandon Ingram last year led this team to the playoffs without Zion. He was a guy that in the playoffs was the best player in a playoff series, looked phenomenal, was making three-point shots, was unstoppable in isolation, where he struggled a little bit last year, and most of all was a leader for this team. Now you add in Zion. And better yet, defensively, you have Herbert Jones going his second season. And in the draft, this team goes out at the 8th overall pick and selects Dyson Daniels out of the G League. Brandon, I'm telling you, he can be an all-defensive player. He's like 6'6", has a nonstop motor, a competitive fire that is so rare. And the biggest question with him was shooting. Well, he has the best shooting coach in the NBA to work with. A guy that has fixed Lonzo Ball's jump shot, who, believe it or not, Dyson Daniels was being compared to. The nuance thing is, while Lonzo was injury prone, this team didn't want to bring him back. Dyson Daniels is younger, and he brings some energy off this team's bench, along with Grand Theft Alvarado in the backcourt as well. Defensively, they have a lot of pieces here to be excited about.
So a question is, so Zion's playing the 4. Is Ingram playing the 2 or is he playing the 3?
I would say Herbert Jones and Zion are the forwards. So Zion, you're asking?
Well, no, so Herbert Jones is going to play the 3 then?
Yeah, he showed some shooting, but it was like 2 attempts a game, so he has a lot of work to do.
Okay. Well, I think mostly they're going to be putting him in there in like that kind of Tony Allen role where he's like, his main goal and main mindset is I'm going to defend the best player on the team, the opposing team.
And he gets out very well in transition. This team, Zion's not going to get a lot of defensive rebounds, and Jonas Valanciunas, he's not going to beat teams in the foot race.
Yeah.
But with Dyson, with CJ, and with, Herbert Jones, those guys can all start a fast break on their own.
Yeah. So my number 2 team is the Dallas Mavericks. Like I said, the number 1 and 2 teams can easily be flipped. I think a Luka-led team is going to be great. One thing I don't know what it is, but my feeling is, John says they've gotten better and this is the best team Luka's played with, but I don't know. The feeling I feel is they've gotten worse and they've gotten less talked about. If anybody else is feeling that, but that's just what I'm getting a sense of. Yeah, I think Luka needs help to, strive forward and to start making championship runs. But I think the honest, real question is, will Luka let his help? Because you brought up Porzingis and he was not healthy, and I agree with that. But even when he was, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was averaging like somewhere between 12 and 15 shots a game, if I'm not mistaken, when he was on the Mavericks.
15 last year, 19
15,
a game.
yeah. What was it before?
19 a game last year.
He averaged 19 shot attempts?
No, 15 attempts.
15 attempts. Yeah, see, that for me is just that I don't like that. I think Luka obviously should have 20 or more, but I think if Porzingis is going to be your second best player on the team, he should get like at least 17 to 18 shot attempts a game. And that was a big contention with Porzingis. I'm pretty sure he talked about it, listen, Luka decides when somebody's getting the ball and when they're not. And he just really wasn't giving it up. I think that was another point of contention with Jalen Brunson too, is that when Luka's got the ball in his hand, it's really just stand around and wait for Luka to do something with it. And when Luka doesn't have the ball in his hand, where is he? He's probably usually in the corner just standing there not doing anything. That's a concern for me. So I don't know. Does Luka have to learn how to play better with, other all-star caliber and all NBA players? Maybe. We have to see. So, but yeah, I think they can easily be the number one team in this division. That's yeah.
The issue for Dallas isn't Luka's willingness to collaborate with another ball handler, because he showed last year with Spencer Dinwiddie he could do that more than fine. You talk about, I don't feel this Mavericks team, the vibe here. And the reason why is they're not very dynamic and they're very predictable. Luka is a top 5, top 8 player, but the theme with him is he makes all the decisions. And much like James Harden in Houston, there has always been a cap on a heliocentric offense. When you don't have multiple guys who can attack from different angles, it makes the job of opposing defenses easier. Now, I said this team didn't get better, but they are the best version of the Mavs at this current point with Luka, because when you have a talent of this caliber, you're shooing for 45 wins. That's how good Luka is. But Jason Kidd last year did a phenomenal job maximizing their personnel. Now, the question is, can this group stay healthy? Because they don't have much depth. I talked about Jaden Hardy coming in, but as a rookie, he's not going to be polished. And so for Luka, the onus is on him to play 70 games. If he plays less than 60, let's say, he has an ankle injury, this team will be in the play-in tournament. The Western Conference is too good. The Suns, the Lakers, those are teams that have been to the finals, and they can both miss the playoffs this year. So for the Mavericks, they need to stay healthy. That's the biggest, X factor at this team that could cost them big time in the standings. And that's the best way they're going to position themselves to make it back to the conference final.
Yeah, I think, honestly, the top 3 teams in this division, they're probably their major concern is injuries. But moving on to the third team, speaking of injury concerns, the Ja Morant-led Memphis Grizzlies. Now, here's another team that I also feel has gotten a little worse. I was looking up some of their moves that they made through the offseason. They added a couple of young rookies. They added, I think I'm getting this name, Jake LaRavia, number 19 overall. They added David Roddy, number 23 overall in the draft, and Kennedy Chandler, number 38 overall. They added Danny Green. Don't really know what that brings nowadays because he's kind of, shot. They traded away DeAnthony Melton. I just feel like this team needs to get Ja, a true number 2, somebody who's on his level or just under it. And until that happens, this team has a cap. And the way Ja Morant plays basketball is very reminiscent to a Dwayne Wade, a Derrick Rose-esque, where he just puts his body on the line. Every offensive play is gonna be 110%. He does not care, and that can be a detriment. And I've heard other former NBA players on TV and talking about him and mentioning this issue with him. So. But that's kind of just how Ja Morant plays. That's how he is special. So I don't know if he can really change that. So is that going to probably shorten his peak, his prime years? There's a chance. So yeah, they need to add. They need to get Ja a real number 2.
We do this every year with the Grizzlies. In the offseason, they make moves like letting go of Kyle Anderson in free agency, trading DeAnthony Melton for a guy in Danny Green who tore his ACL, and at this point, like you said, is very limited. But for the last 4 years, in each of their seasons with Taylor Jenkins, 2022, where they won 56 games, tying the franchise record, 2021, making the playoffs and beating the Warriors, by the way, in the play-in, 36 wins that year, or 38, 2020, making it to the play-in when no one expected them to. Taylor Jenkins has established himself as a true elite head coach. Top 6, top 8. He's consistently been the coach of the year discussion over the last 16 months. But the theme with Memphis is, like you said, Ja Morant, he's filling the bill of a Allen Iverson, but it's just that go-to scorer. And alongside him, there's not that star-level talent. Desmond Bane last year was phenomenal. 47% from the field, knockdown shooter from 3. And in the playoffs, he was playing through back injuries and still doing his best out there. For the Grizzlies, the X factor this year, 2. Jaren Jackson Jr., who will miss the start of the season after undergoing a foot procedure, and Zaire Williams. Zaire is one of the league's most important young players because the Grizzlies need some versatility on the wings. DeAnthony Melton's, he's gone. Dylan Brooks is a shot chucker that I can't stand. And in a lineup like this, you need a 5th starter that's like Jay Crowder, PJ Tucker, guys that know their role. Desmond Bane's better. Jaren Jackson Jr. is better. And oftentimes in the playoffs, Steven Adams won't be out there. Instead, it'll be maybe, I don't know if Jake LaRavia will be out there. He reminds me of Doug McDermott of the San Antonio Spurs. And there's going to be times where Jalen Brooks is the last guy. His job is to defend, space the floor, and create opportunities for his teammates in transition. But he doesn't know when to dial it back. And that's his limitation as a player on a contending team that can hold the entire unit back altogether. So Zaire needs to fit the bill, that fifth starter that can take over. And he reminds me of Brandon Ingram. So there is the potential for him to do that. The player I want to highlight here is Steven Adams. Because Steven Adams last year was tremendous. In a perfect role, in the right situation for him and John Morant. He's the type of screen center that'll set two of them almost. And he is so strong and big, he'll almost barricade a lane for John Morant to run right by him, kind of like what he did with Russell Westbrook. And he's a very good offensive rebounder, a smart passer out of the high block, and defensively, he has size. And with Jaren Jackson Jr., makes for one of the better front courts in the NBA because of Jaren's versatility. They fit together very well. To start the season, though, they're going to have to roll with either Santi Aldama or Brandon Clark at the starting four spot, because losing Jaren, who is their second most important player last year, and arguably the most improved defensive player in basketball, is going to be a critical blow. They won last year without Ja because this defense is truly elite. There's no questions here defensively, outside of Ja, who kind of at times in the playoffs can be attacked. The question is how they can generate offense in the postseason when Ja Morant is maybe not himself. Because we saw last year, this team is very flawed around Zion on that side of the ball. And the ironic thing here, Brandon, is last year they had a better offense and offensive rating than defense for the better part of the season. Now, their defense did finish fourth. Their offense finished fifth. But I'm really concerned where that shooting's going to come from, because Jaren Jackson Jr. last year only shot 31% from deep. And that's something he must improve.
Yeah. It's a race to see which team is going to be healthy by the end of the season for this division. The last two teams, I have nothing more to say on them. I'll let John talk if he wants to talk a little positives about the last two teams, but me, nothing really. The only thing I wrote about the San Antonio Spurs is they've got Greg Popovich, and the Houston Texans. Well, they might as well be. The Houston Rockets, they're really, they don't really affect the NBA scene right now. So if John wants to say anything about those two teams, I don't really have anything to say.
What Brandon's getting at is that these two teams are at the bottom of the food chain.
Yeah.
They are. Greg Popovich came in the media day and said, I want to put your money on us in Vegas winning a championship this season. And that is indicative of a brand new era in San Antonio where he has to develop young talents. We don't know how much longer Pop's going to be here, but what we do know is his new responsibility is not winning playoff games, preparing night in and night out for the next contender they're going to match up against in the playoffs. It's developing these young guys, and they have a lot. They've garnered quite a few in the last 3 years. Devin Vassell is the guy who will break out for this team this year. A lot of people have pointed to Keldon Johnson, the former 29th overall pick from 2019. But Devin Vassell the following year came in as a rookie and had the reins, like I said, a lot of young guys pulled back from him. But he's a wing player that can shoot off the dribble, has very good instincts, and great physical tools. In San Antonio, that goes a very long way. The biggest thing for them this offseason was losing their shooting coach to the Oklahoma City Thunder and Shep England. That was a critical blow for a team that's trying to develop the jump shots of a few young guys I'm about to mention. But for Vassell, he can shoot at a very high level, and on a team where he's going to get the opportunity to start. DeJounte Murray gets traded this offseason to the Atlanta Hawks for 3 first-round draft picks, and they clear a ton of salary cap, and most importantly, they give a lot of opportunity to these young guys. Between Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell, Vassell is the go-to ball handler in isolation that can create his own shot, and I think this year has a chance to win Most Improved Player in year 3, because he's going to put up 17, 18 points per game on good splits, and defensively fills out very nicely for this team. At point guard, Trey Jones will come in. He's Tyus Jones' younger brother. Very similar player, won't turn over the ball, will run your offense, and can make shots. And then off the bench, you have Josh Primo, the former lottery pick from last year, and the newest guy in here, Jeremy Shohan out of Baylor. For Jeremy, he needs a jump shot big time. And that's where I think losing their shooting coach will be a negative influence. I mean, he really missed out. If he came a year or two sooner and he had Chip Engelland, who reworked Kawhi, Keldon Johnson's jumpers, and even that DeJounte Murray to a point as a mid-range guy, it would have done wonders for his development. So I'm a little bit concerned there. Talking about the Rockets for a few moments, a lot of people don't know this, Brandon. Do you remember the Russell Westbrook trade? So how do I say this? The Rockets are building something nice. They have a young superstar, I would say, in Jalen Green. That has the opportunity or the potential to lead the league in a couple of years in points per game. He's electric. He can shoot off the dribble, and he knows how to use his athleticism to get to the rim and finish over and through defenders. They also don't have their first-round pick in 2024. So this is the last year for them to rebuild before they owe Oklahoma City a top 4 protected pick. And it's pretty apparent, much like it was in 2021, this team has hamstringed themselves in that avenue. But it was the old regime. So now Daryl Morey's gone. Raphael Stone has to work around that after the debacle that was giving up 2 first-round picks, 2 pick swaps, and Chris Paul for the right to obtain Russell Westbrook, who was later traded for a single draft pick and John Wall. Wall, by the way, the team bought out. So really, you guided yourself pretty bad with that trade. One of, if not the worst trade of the last decade. But in the meantime this year, Jabari Smith comes in, best shooter at 6'11" or 7 foot in this class. He reminds me a lot of Jaren Jackson Jr. And with him, Jalen Green, and Alperen Şengün, who is a throwback big that can pass and really has good footwork around the rim, this team should be a lot of fun. But their head coach, Stephen Silas, has done a bad job through a couple of years with this team. Defensively, they have low efforts and are not very consistent. And offensively, it was an absolute mess last year to start the year. They had the highest, they were basically a turnover factory that had no structure. So for him this year, it's likely going to be his last year on his deal. He has to show some structure and stability here. Otherwise, the Rockets are going to be looking to hire a real win-now head coach in the season because it's going to be time for them to put it all together. Ultimately, for them and the San Antonio Spurs, the selling point is they're going after Victor Wembanyama, as are 6 other teams in the Victor sweepstakes. So, best of luck to those 2 squads.
May the odds be ever in your favor. All right, but that ends and wraps up our NBA talk. That wraps up episode number 37, John, unless you have anything you'd like to say.
The Warriors play the Lakers opening night, not the Grizzlies. So that's the Christmas game.
The Grizzlies game is the Christmas game. Okay. For me, I just want to say, mention a fun little stat that'll be coming up. Bill Belichick needs 2 more wins to surpass George Halas in combined regular season and postseason wins. Halas has 324. Belichick has 323. So history will probably be made this year. And to end it off, I'm not going to be watching Thursday Night Football tonight. I don't think they deserve my viewership because of the game that they're putting on. I'm going to the movies to watch Halloween Ends, one of my favorite franchises in movie history, the Halloween franchise. Can't wait. I've loved this new trilogy. This is the end of it, or quote unquote the end. You know, Hollywood always likes to suck things dry for more money, but I'm excited. I'm going to have a great ass time. Anybody watching football tonight, you know, my prayers are with you. But yeah, that wraps it up for me. So that wraps up episode number 37 of the Wise Guys podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share the video, tell your friends and family members about us. Follow us on our socials. The links will be in the description.
And download the BetStamp app.
And download the BetStamp app and use the code WISEGUYS. But I have been Brandon Capizzello. That was John Tortorelli. And as Justin always says, we got 2 words for you. Stay classy.